This woman says she was deceived by Baltasar Nganga, who promised to make her his second wife. Because of that promise, she left her first husband who was poor and didn't have a good job. But what happened to her afterward is terrifying, as she tells it herself.
I was the head of senior chefs for the National Financial Investigation Agency, a role I worked hard for years in the making. I wasn't just cooking meals, I curated menus for political banquets, confidential meetings, and high-profile negotiations. I saw and heard more than most agents did. My husband, a quiet schoolteacher, never quite understood the fire I had inside me. He was gentle but not ambitious, stable but not exciting. And then came Baltasar Nganga. Baltasar was the director of the Equatorial Guinea branch of the agency, a man of power, charm, and precision. He wasn't just rich, he moved like a man who owned the air he breathed. Our paths crossed during a diplomatic summit. I served him a meal that left him stunned. "Who cooked this?" he demanded. That's how it began. He pursued me relentlessly, knowing exactly what to say. "You deserve more," he whispered over late-night phone calls. "You're too powerful to be shackled to a man who doesn't see you." He made promises. Marriage. Status. Wealth. He painted a life for me, one filled with silk sheets, villas on the coast, and my name in lights beside his. But he said it couldn't happen unless I was free. So I listened. And I did what he asked. I filed for divorce. I burned bridges. I ruined a man who had only ever loved me, just so I could chase a dream sold by a man with eyes like gold and a heart like a vault. Baltasar made good on part of his promise. He made me his second wife, a title that sounded more like an afterthought than a triumph. But by then, the shine was gone. I saw through the illusion. He didn't want me for love or partnership. He wanted to conquer me, use me, and move on. The last time we spoke, he told me plainly, "You were a challenge. Now, you're just a memory." Now I'm left with a taste of betrayal in my mouth, not of what he did to me, but of what I became for him. And every day I step into that kitchen, I remember I served the finest men in the world, but I served my soul to the wrong one. Dating with Baltasar started innocently, as these things often do. I was overseeing a private dinner for the International Board of the National Financial Investigation Agency, 10 men and 1 woman who shaped the financial intelligence operations across Africa. Baltasar Nganga was the guest of honor, flown in from Equatorial Guinea. He entered the room like thunder, wrapped in silk dark suit, tailored to perfection, voice low and deliberate, eyes scanning the room like he was cataloging weaknesses. I noticed him before he noticed me. How could I not? Everyone moved when he did. He wasn't just respected, he was feared, and then he asked to meet the chef. I walked in, wearing my white uniform and apron, clipboard in hand, expecting a polite thank you and a nod. What I got instead was a slow, measured look from head to toe and the words, "You're not just feeding stomachs. You're feeding power." From that moment on, he found reasons to talk to me. A text about the wine pairings. A message complimenting the spice profile of the sea base. Then, he asked if I could arrange a private tasting for him, just him. We met at an after-hours dining room. Candles. Jazz humming in the background. I cooked while he watched, asking questions not just about the food, but about me, my life. My dreams. My husband. He didn't attack my marriage directly. He was smarter than that. He asked questions like, "Do you ever feel like you were meant for more? Does he challenge you? Would he ever be able to follow you into the life you deserve?" It was emotional erosion. Slowly, gently, like waves wearing down a cliff. He made me feel seen, desired, respected. My husband at home was kind, but dull. Predictable. With Balthazar, every moment was adrenaline. One night, after a second tasting, I handed him a small dish of truffle cream pasta he said reminded him of his mother's cooking. He tasted it, looked at me, and said, "You know, if you were mine, I'd put you on a throne." That was the first time he touched me. Just a hand on mine, but it felt like lightning. I should have pulled away. I didn't. It escalated fast. Secret calls. Late night drives to meet him in penthouse suites. He started sending me gifts, perfume, gold bracelets, even an envelope with cash that I never asked for but didn't return. Then came the ultimatum. I'm not going to be the man in the shadows forever. If you want a future, you'll leave the past. Meaning leave your husband. He told me he had already spoken to his first wife. That she understood. That being his second wife was an honor, not a compromise. That in his country, it was a symbol of status. I believed him. Or maybe I wanted to believe him so badly that I didn't care what was real. So I did it. I broke my husband's heart. Left him standing in the rain outside a courthouse, divorce papers in hand. I told him I had changed. The truth? I had been changed by power, by desire, by lies dressed up as promises. Balthazar married me in a quiet, unofficial ceremony in Malabo. No celebration. No ring. Just words and a private vow. I was his second wife, just like he said. But I wasn't special anymore. I was kept. Controlled. Used. The passion faded fast. The gifts slowed. The attention disappeared. And one night, when I asked him why he didn't look at me the same way, he simply said, "Because I already had you. You're not a mystery anymore." That night, I sat alone in the kitchen of our coastal villa, staring at the same hands that had once prepared meals for world leaders. And I realized I had cooked up my own downfall. Not with fire or knives but with trust, with need, and with the kind of love that burns you from the inside out. It was the early phase before anyone knew. Before whispers turned into rumors. Back when I still smiled when I saw his name flash on my phone. Balthazar was in town for a month-long financial reform summit. Every day, he came into the agency dining suite under some excuse. Checking on food quality, security standards, international protocol. But I knew why he came. He wanted me. Our glances turned into long conversations. Innocent at first. He'd sit at the chef's table after hours, sleeves rolled up, gold watch glinting under the kitchen lights, asking questions about flavors, about my childhood, about the kind of life I wanted. One night, I found a handwritten note slipped under my office door. "I'm hosting a private gathering at my hotel suite. No politics. No pressure. Just you and I and the taste of something unforgettable." I went. The suite at the presidential floor of Hotel Sarina was a world away from my small apartment and even farther from the modest home I shared with my husband. The lights were low. Jazz records played from his private vinyl collection. He poured a glass of cooked roti and handed it to me with a slow smile. That night was the first time we kissed. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't messy. It was deliberate, like everything he did. He touched my hair, traced his fingers down my jaw, and said, "You don't belong in the background, Querida. You were made to stand beside kings." That line? It broke me open. The next time I saw him was the very next evening. Then again. And again. At first, we told ourselves it was just physical, that we were adults, that it meant nothing, but it meant everything to me. The way he took his time. The way he made me feel like the only woman in the world. The way he'd whisper in Spanish in the dark, calling me mi fuego secreto, my secret fire. We'd spend hours tangled in silk sheets, wine half finished on the nightstand, laughing like we weren't both betraying someone. He started booking flights for us. Secret weekends in Casablanca, Cape Town, Sao Tome. I cooked for him barefoot in hotel kitchens. We danced on balconies under foreign stars. He'd slip gifts into my luggage, diamonds tucked into my sock drawer, designer heels in my carry-on. He told me he couldn't imagine life without me. That he hated leaving me every time duty called him back to Equatorial Guinea. He said, I want you beside me. Not just in bed. In life. He promised marriage. Said it would be secret at first, but real. That I had to be patient. That I had to leave my husband for us to have a future. He looked at me with those heavy, dark eyes, and I believed him. We made love in places people only dream of: beach villas, marble bathtubs, private jets. But it wasn't just about the sex. It was the fantasy. The illusion that I mattered to a man who could have anyone and chose me. But fantasy is like perfume, sweet at first until it fades and leaves nothing but the memory of what once was. We weren't just having an affair, we were playing with power. Every glance in the hallway, every brush of his hand against mine when no one was looking, was part of our private game. The tension was electric. I was still head of senior chefs. He was the director. People passed us in the corridors, clueless that just moments before, their feared boss had me pressed against the wall, whispering things that would set my skin on fire. It started small. His office was our sanctuary. He had that massive mahogany desk, polished to a shine, and a leather chair that felt like a throne. I'd bring him food under the pretense of checking quality. A taste test, we'd say. But the moment the door clicked shut behind me, the game began. He'd walk over slowly, always in control. One hand on the small of my back, the other lifting my chin. He kissed me like he owned me. Like he needed to taste every part of my silence. Sometimes it was soft and slow. Other times, fierce and breathless, his hands gripping my waist as if he couldn't stand another second without me. And the bathroom. His office bathroom was marble and gold, absurdly elegant for a government building. But it became ours when the days got too long and the need got too loud. He'd lock the main door, take my hand, then lead me inside like a man dragging his secret to confession. That room saw things it was never meant to. Kisses that left me trembling. Clothes pushed aside in haste. My back against the cold counter, his lips on my neck, his voice low and hungry in my ear. You're mine here. They'll never know. But you know. You feel it. There was one afternoon I'll never forget. He had just wrapped a tense call with the Minister of Oil. He looked tired, frustrated. I knocked, as always, carrying a plate of seared tuna and citrus risotto. He opened the door, looked at me, really looked, and said nothing. Just pulled me inside. Locked it. And before I could set the plate down, he kissed me. No words. No smile. Just raw, breath-stealing hunger. His hand slid under my coat, his mouth claiming mine like he'd waited hours for it. That kiss, it wasn't just lust. It was need. His lips on mine were like a promise and a warning all at once. This is dangerous. But I'm not stopping. Sometimes, the thrill made me dizzy. The fear of getting caught. The way I'd walk out of his office, cheeks flushed, lipstick smeared, fixing my uniform while pretending nothing happened. But something always had. Every time. And each time, I gave a little more of myself away. I couldn't just tell my husband I had feelings for someone else, not yet. That would have made me the betrayer. So I started pulling back. Slowly. Strategically. I stopped coming home at the same time. Blamed late shifts, kitchen emergencies, new menus. He bought it at first. Then I got quieter. Stopped laughing at his jokes. Forgot his birthday but remembered Balthasar's. I let the silence between us stretch like cold steel wire. When he asked what was wrong, I told him, I'm tired. When he asked if it was work, I said, it's everything. I made him feel like the marriage was slipping away naturally. Like he was losing me, not the other way around. Step 2: Creating distance through guilt. Balthasar coached me on this. He said, don't fight him. Make him feel like he's the one holding you back. So I started planting the seeds. You don't understand my work. You never believed in what I could become. Sometimes I wonder if we ever wanted the same future. I turned every conversation into a subtle guilt trip. I made him feel like he was the anchor keeping me from flying. The truth? He loved me too gently. He gave me safety when what I really craved was danger. I started small. Petty arguments. Misunderstandings I intentionally let escalate. One night, I said I had a catering emergency for a late event at the agency. In reality, I was with Balthasar in a candle-lit suite 2 blocks away, wrapped in silk, drinking champagne off his chest. My husband tried calling me 4 times. I ignored him. When I got home at 2 a.m., he was waiting, worried sick. I snapped at him. Don't you trust me? I'm working. He apologized. That's when I knew I had him twisted in guilt. I was rewriting our narrative while he was still trying to save it. I left my phone unlocked on purpose. A message from Balthasar, cryptic but obvious enough. Next weekend in Malabo. I'll have the ring. I'll have you. He saw it. Of course he did. He didn't confront me right away. He waited. I could see it on his face every time he looked at me, like he was staring at a woman he didn't know anymore. One night, I told him, cold, calm, I think we should separate. This marriage, it's not alive anymore. He didn't fight. Just asked one question. Is there someone else? I said, no. And that was the last lie I ever told him. 2 weeks later, I was on a private flight to Malabo, wearing a silk dress Balthasar bought me, and a new identity he promised would change my life forever. But what he didn't tell me was that I had just traded a man who loved me for a man who wanted to own me. The divorce with my husband papers were signed in silence. We didn't argue. We didn't cry, not then. We just sat across from each other at that cold, sterile table in the lawyer's office. I wore a navy suit, lipstick perfectly applied. He looked like a man trying to hold his world together with nothing but duct tape and dignity. He signed fast. When it was my turn, I hesitated, not because I was unsure, but because somewhere, deep down, I wanted to feel something. Regret. Guilt. Something other than the thrill of finally being free. I signed. He looked at me then, really looked, eyes rimmed red, mouth tight, but steady. He stood up slowly, ran a hand through his hair, then reached into his coat and pulled out a small photograph. It was old us, on our wedding day. Young, laughing, drenched in light. I didn't even remember someone had taken that picture. He placed it on the table between us. Then said, "You'll regret this one day. Not because I was rich. Not because I was powerful. But because I loved you before anyone else saw your shine. Before the silk dresses. Before the secret flights. I loved you when you were real." I sat still. Cold. Silent. He doesn't love you. He's addicted to the chase. But one day, you'll stop being new. And when that day comes, he won't just forget you, he'll replace you. Then he leaned in closer and whispered, "And when you're standing alone in a golden prison you beg to live in, you'll remember I warned you." He walked out without looking back. I stared at that photo for a long time after he left. I didn't take it with me. I couldn't. But I should have. Because those words, they followed me into every mansion, every luxury suite, every cold night next to a man who stopped touching me once he conquered me. I got fired because of Balthasar's wife. Mary Ngonga, the elegant, calculating wife of Balthasar, found out about the affair the way only a powerful woman does, not through gossip, not through suspicion, but through proof. It started the night of the ministerial gala. I showed up wearing a crimson gown and the platinum watch Balthasar had gifted me, a rare, custom Patek that only a handful of men in Central Africa even owned. I thought I looked untouchable. But Mary saw it from across the ballroom. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She simply smiled tight, knowing, and turned to whisper something to her personal assistant. That's when the wheels began to turn. Over the next 2 weeks, everything in my world shifted. Quietly. Strategically. My agency credentials began malfunctioning. High-level meetings I was once required at were suddenly held without me. Colleagues grew distant. My directorship was under review. Then came the final blow, a discreet manila envelope slid under my apartment door late at night. Inside, photos. Screenshots. Security cam stills. One was of me and Balthasar at a coastal villa, his arms around my waist, lips on my neck. Another, taken from a private jet hangar, showed us boarding together in silence. And taped to the back was a handwritten note. You were never invisible. You were just predictable. The next morning, I received my termination letter from the National Financial Investigation Agency, citing gross misconduct, breach of ethics, and endangerment of diplomatic trust. Mary didn't scream. She didn't confront. She just ended me. And that's how I learned, when you play with kings, it's the queen you should fear. In the end, everything Balthasar promised me, love, power, a new life as his second wife, was nothing more than a beautiful lie wrapped in luxury. He used me, fed me dreams soaked in champagne, and once I had served my purpose, he let me fall without a word, without a fight. And Mary, she didn't just take my career, she took my identity, my pride, my illusion of being irreplaceable. Now, I sit in silence, far from the marble halls and gold wristwatches, haunted by the face of a husband I betrayed, a man who warned me I'd regret it. And he was right. If I could offer one piece of advice, it would be this. Never trade a heart that loves you for a hand that only wants to use you. Because once the passion fades, you'll find yourself alone, used, discarded, and remembering too late the value of what you gave up.